Bonjour and good morning. Welcome to WASA Distance Education and PLAR Math. And this is the second week of classes in Term 1B. PLAR students who did not finish the PLAR English or the History Geography in Term 1A can continue working on the key questions in Term 1B. So you're not withdrawn at the end of the term. You just continue from where you left off. Just a reminder, there are 2 classes per week, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. And there are 2 ways to participate in classes. You can participate on radio by calling into our studio, or you can participate via Zoom using the link provided, or you go to zoom.us. The instructions for joining a Zoom class are in your study guide. You can contact your DEC or me on how to join a Zoom class. All PLAR Math students are welcome to attend classes, so you don't have to be signed up for radio Zoom classes. Even if you signed up for PLAR IL, you can still join the classes. To contact me, you can use email, phone, or send a message on Facebook. PLAR English classes from last term are available on YouTube still, so if you go to B. Osmond Wassa, PLAR English, you will find the PLAR English playlist, and you can watch the classes there, the recorded classes, or you can go to the WASA YouTube channel and find the PLAR English playlist there as well. And the PLAR math classes are being uploaded to the WASA YouTube channel, and you can watch those classes there as well as the old classes from last year. If you're working ahead of where we are now, those classes are being uploaded, are still, available on YouTube if you need some help, and you're ahead of where we are right now. Okay, just a reminder that this term spreads over into next year. So we're starting this month, obviously, and then we have 5 more weeks, including this week till Christmas break. And then term 1B continues for 3 weeks after we get back from the Christmas break. So it seems like longer than 9 weeks, but it's not actually. Okay, just a reminder that this year we are offering PLAR students the opportunity or the option of writing the culminating activity first. And if you pass the culminating activity, then you don't have to do the lessons and the key questions. You just move on to the next subject that you need or the next step, depending on how many credits you need for the grade 9 and 10. So if you don't pass the culminating activity, then you will have to do the lessons and key questions, and then you get another opportunity to write the culminating activity after that. So it's not one and done. You do get more than one chance to write the culminating activity. So if you want to try the culminating activity first, then please let us know. We are contacting students, PLAR students, to see if you want to try the culminating activity. Okay, just a reminder that there are 2 types of questions in your lessons, the support questions and the key questions. The support questions are the practice questions that you do before you try the key questions. The answers to the support questions are near the end of the lesson, right before the key questions. So as you do the key questions, go to the answers and check and see how you're doing. If you're doing really well with the support questions, then you can move on to the key questions. If you're struggling with the support questions, then you need to go back and review the material in the lesson, watch the recorded class, or contact me for help. Yeah, and the key questions are the questions that you submit to me for marking. And you'll notice that the key questions are the ones that have the marks beside them. Support questions do not. And all the key questions are right at the very end. So you can just pull the key questions off and submit those. Different ways to submit your work. First way, of course, is to give it to your DEC, and then your DEC will send it out to us here in Sioux Lookout. If your learning center is closed, your DEC is away, you don't have a DEC or you don't have a learning center, you can submit your own work. You can scan and email your own work to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to me. Or if you have a fax machine, you can fax it to our toll-free number. If you're submitting your own work, make sure you write your name and the subject and your teacher's name on your work. Okay, we need that information. If we don't know who the work is coming from, that's kind of hard to send it back to you. So again, make sure you include that information. If you don't have access to a scanner or a fax machine, then you can use your smartphone to submit your work. With your smartphone, you can either take photos of your work or you can scan your work using the built-in scanner on your phone. And then you can either email it to that same email address and CC it to me, or you can actually send it on Facebook Messenger. Okay, so different ways to submit your work. If you live in Sioux Lookout or the surrounding area, then you can use our outdoor mailbox, which is located at the side of the building in the Wassa parking lot, the side facing the post office, or you can just knock on the front door and give it to whoever answers the door. You can also use Google Docs to do your work, and then you can send me the link to your work. So just share the document with me. Make sure that it is shareable before you try to do that. And then the last option is to use Google Classroom, okay, to complete and submit your work. So lots of different ways of getting your work to me. Just a reminder that by submitting work, you can be entered, you have the opportunity to win a prize. So at the end of every term, WASA has 2 student draws, one for students who earned a credit and one for students who submit work. So if you submit work and earn a credit, that gives you more chances to win more prizes. So you could technically win a prize for submitting work and for earning a credit. So submit your work as soon as you finish it. Okay. So that's it for the announcements this morning. We're going to start off with a review of what we did in our class last week on Thursday. So last week was the first week of classes. We started lesson 1, and in lesson 1, we're looking at integers and fractions. So far we've just been looking at integers. We will start fractions this week though. Just a review, we looked at adding integers and subtracting integers, and there are rules for adding and subtracting integers. So for adding, the rules are if you're adding 2 positive integers, then your answer is going to be positive. So for example, positive 4 plus positive 8 equals positive 12. If you're adding 2 negative integers, your answer will be negative. So for example, -6 plus -3, your answer is -9. So if the signs are the same, the sign for your answer will be the same. So positive integers will give you a positive answer. Negative integers will give you a negative answer. It gets a little bit trickier when the signs of the numbers you're adding are different. So when we're adding a positive plus a negative, use the sign of the larger absolute value. So for example, positive 12 plus -7. 12, the absolute value of positive 12 is 12. The absolute value of -7 is 7. So basically the absolute value means the number without the sign. So 12 and 7. So 12 is bigger, it's positive. So that means that our answer will be positive. To get the number part of the answer, we subtract the integers. So 12 take away 7 equals 5, and it's positive 5 because 12 has the bigger absolute value. Another example, 10 plus negative 14. So we've got a positive 10, negative 14. The absolute value of positive 10 is 10. The absolute value of negative 14 is 14. 14 has the larger absolute value. 14 is negative. So that means our answer will be negative. And then we subtract the integers. 14 take away 10 equals 4. So our answer is negative 4. If you're adding a negative and a positive, same thing. Use the sign of the larger absolute value. So a negative 13 plus positive 16. Look at the absolute values. 13 and 16. 16 is bigger. 16 is positive. So our answer is going to be positive. And then subtract the integers. 16 take away 13 leaves me with 3. Negative 9 plus 7. Absolute values are 9 and 7. 9 is bigger. It's negative. So our answer is going to be negative. 9 take away 7 is 2. Okay, so when you're adding integers that have different signs, there's an extra step in there because you have to figure out what the sign is going to be. You can't just go positive plus positive equals positive, negative plus negative equals negative. It's not that simple because you have two different signs. So you have to take that extra step to subtract the numbers and then figure out what sign it's going to be. Or actually, extra 2 steps, I guess. Okay, so that's for adding integers. For subtracting integers, basically what we're doing here is we're changing our subtraction into an addition. So the rules are keep the first number. So 4 take away 7. We keep the 4, that doesn't change. Then we change the subtraction to addition. And then we change the number that we're subtracting, in this case it's 7, to its opposite, which is negative 7. So then we end up with an addition problem, 4 plus negative 7, and then we use the rules for adding. So we've got different signs. We've got a positive 4 and negative 7. So we have to look at the absolute values, 4 and 7. 7 is bigger, 7 is negative, so our answer is going to be negative. And then we subtract. 7 take away 4 is 3. So our answer is negative 3. So this is where you have to do a few extra steps when you're subtracting. Now, if this is something that's new to you, something that you haven't done a lot, make sure you do all the steps one at a time. Don't try to do it in your head because then you end up making mistakes. Okay, so example B, keep the negative 1. So that's not going to change. Change subtraction to addition. Change the number being subtracted, 9, to its opposite, negative 9. And we end up with an addition problem that's negative 1 plus negative 9. Now here we have 2 negatives, so that means our answer is going to be negative, and we just add the numbers. 1 plus 9 is 10. So the answer is negative 10. Example C, negative 3 minus a positive 5. So hopefully you remember that what I said. Sorry about that, I have a cough. Okay, so when I said that if you have 2 minus signs or minus and negative coming together, that automatically changes to a positive. So we keep the negative 3 the same. Minus negative 5 changes to plus positive 5, and we end up with negative 3 plus positive 5. So we've got a negative plus a positive, which means that we have to look at the absolute values. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Our absolute value of positive 5 is 5. 5 is bigger than 3, it's positive, so our answer is going to be positive. And we subtract the numbers. 5 take away 3 is 2. Okay, so basically, if you can add integers, you can subtract integers, but you have to remember that for subtracting integers, we're changing to adding. Okay, so just remember those rules. Okay, so that's what we did last week in class, adding and subtracting integers. So today we're going to look at multiplying and dividing integers, both. Multiplying, dividing integers are very similar. Basically the same. So in your lesson, sorry, I turned myself off instead of on. Okay, so the rules for multiplying and dividing integers are the same. So in your lesson on page 12, you'll find information on multiplying integers. On page 13, on page 14 is support question number 3 for practicing multiplying integers. So make sure you do that support question before you do the key question. Okay, so integer multiplication. So again, the rules for multiplying and dividing integers are the same. So for multiplying integers, sorry. Okay, multiplying integers. So step 1, multiply their absolute value. So again, absolute value means the value of the number without the sign. Step 2, determine the sign of the final answer. The final answer is called the product. So if the signs of the two numbers are the same, so positive times a positive, or a negative times a negative, that means that the product is going to be positive. So if you have the same signs, your answer is going to be positive. If the signs of the two numbers are different, then the product is always a negative number. So if you have a positive times a negative, or a negative times a positive, your answer is going to be negative every time. So for example, multiply 4 and negative 7. So we've got a positive 4, negative 7. So first, get the absolute value of each number. The absolute value of positive 4 is 4. The absolute value of negative 7 is 7. Next, multiply to find the product of the absolute values. So you're going to multiply your numbers. 4 times 7 is 28. And then you have to determine the sign of the final answer. So remember, the rule says that if the integers signs are different, then our product is going to be negative. So our original problem is positive 4 times negative 7. So different signs. So that means that the 28 that we got when we multiply 4 times 7 is actually going to be negative 28 for our final answer. Okay, example 2, multiply the integers negative 15 and negative 3. So here, find the absolute value, 15 and 3. So we multiply 15 times 3, which is 45. Look at the numbers. They're both negative. So that means that our answer is going to be positive. So 15 times 3 is positive 45. Okay, I like to find the do the sign part first so that I don't forget it after I multiply the numbers. So what I would do is look at the signs. Negative times a negative, I know that's going to give me a positive, and then 15 times 3 is 45. Positive 45 is my answer. Whichever way works best for you, but I just worry that I would forget the sign if I don't do the sign first. Okay, so what happens if you're multiplying 3 integers or 4? Then you work from left to right. So you start at the left and you multiply. So 3 times 8, that's a positive times a negative. That's going to give me a negative. 3 times 8 is 24. And then I'm going to multiply that 24 by -2. Got a negative times a negative. That's going to give me a positive. 24 times 2 is 48. So positive 48. So even though in the original problem, we've got negatives and positives, our answer is going to be positive because of the way we're multiplying. Okay. Okay. Now, when it comes to multiplication, there are a lot of different ways to write it. Most people are familiar with using the X, the times sign. So A times B equals C. Another way to do it is to use a dot or the asterisk. So you might see it written as A dot B or A with an asterisk B. So either way, it is multiplication. It's also can be written just using brackets or parentheses. So you've got a in brackets, a B in brackets, and there's nothing in between the brackets. So if it was A brackets plus B in brackets, then you know you're adding. But if there's no sign in between, then it's multiplication. Okay, so A in brackets, B in brackets, that's multiplication. Okay, so remember that. And then another way to write multiplication is put the variables, so variables are letters, next to each other. So A times B. Okay, so remember those different ways because once you move up in math, so you get up to your senior math, you won't see, very seldom will you see multiplication written as an X at times. Most of the time it's going to be a dot or using parentheses or brackets. Okay, so let's do a little bit of practice with multiplying integers. So number one, we've got -5 times 8. So we've got different signs, which means that our answer is going to be negative. Then we multiply our numbers. 5 times 8 is 40. So our answer is -40. Number two, we've got a -4 times a -4. So this time, both of our integers are negative, which means our answer is going to be positive. So same sign, positive answer. 4 times 4 is 16. Number three, we've got 11 times -3. We've got a positive times a negative, so different signs means our answer is going to be negative, and 11 times 3 is 33. Number four, we've got -9 times -5, so a negative times a negative, which will give me a positive answer. Same signs. 9 times 5 is 45. Number five, we've got 7 times 7, both positive, so it's going to give me a positive number answer, so 49. So remember how I said, when we're writing our answers, if your answer is positive, you don't have to put in that positive sign. But if it's negative, you must include the negative sign. Okay, number 6, we've got -12 times -5. A negative times a negative, which will give me a positive answer, and 12 times 5 is 60. So negative times a negative, because it's the same sign, the answer is going to be positive. Okay, number 7, 5 times, the little asterisk means times. Let me extend my page here. -40, so we've got a positive times a negative, different signs, answer is going to be negative. 5 times 40 is 200. So answer is -200. Number 8, 10 times +11. So that's a +10, +11. Asterisk means multiplication. So 10 times 11 is 110. Positive. Number 9, -3 times a -7. both negative, so my answer is going to be positive. 3 times 7, 21. Number 10, -1 times +9, so different signs, negative answer. 1 times 9, 9. Number 11, 8 times 10, both positive, answer is going to be 80. Number 12, negative times a negative, -8 times a -7 equals positive 56. Okay, so I'm just putting in the positive sign because I'm saying that the answer is positive, but when you do your answers, you don't have to put in the plus, but you must remember the minus. Okay, so dividing integers. So dividing integers is, there's rules for dividing integers as well. Same rules as for multiplying with one little change. So in your lesson on page 15 is the information for dividing integers. Page 16 is support question number 4. So make sure you do support question number 4 before you start on your key question. Now, I should also mention, just like with adding and subtracting integers, you can use a calculator to multiply your integers. You just have to remember to use that key on your calculator, the one that has the plus and the minus sign. So put in your number first, then hit that integer key to make it a negative. Or don't use the key if your number is positive, then use the multiplication sign and then hit equals and you'll get your answer. But make sure you use that integer key if you're multiplying using a calculator. Or you can just figure out what the sign is and then just multiply the numbers using your calculator if your multiplication skills are a little bit weak. Okay, so integer division. So now that you've learned how to multiply integers, dividing should be a breeze. And that's because they follow the same rules. So dividing integers, step 1, just like multiplying, you divide their absolute value. So the value of the number without the sign. Step 2, determine the sign of the final answer, which is called the quotient. So if the signs of the two numbers are the same, the quotient is positive. So a positive divided by a positive will give you a positive answer. A negative divided by a negative will give you a positive answer. So don't get addition and multiplication, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division mixed up. With addition and subtraction, remember, the signs are the same. Your answer is going to have the same answer. For multiplication, it's different. If the sign of the two numbers are different, the quotient is always a negative number. So if we've got a positive divided by a negative, our answer is going to be negative. It's a negative divided by a positive, the answer is going to be negative. Okay, so be careful with those rules. So examples of integer division. Example number 1, divide the two integers below. -56 divided by -7. So here we have two negative numbers. So just did the rules. If you're not, both signs are the same, a negative divided by a negative, your answer is going to be positive. Then you divide the numbers. 56 divided by 7 is 8. Positive 8 is your number, is your answer, your quotient. Finally, we'll determine the sign. We already did at the beginning. So like I said, I like to determine the sign first and put it down first before I divide the numbers. Otherwise, I forget it. Okay, so example 2, divide the two integers below. Positive 24 divided by -8. So we've got a positive number and a negative number. The signs are different, so I know that the answer is going to be negative. So now I divide my numbers. 24 divided by 8 is 3. So my answer to 24 divided by -8 is -3. Example 3, divide the three integers below from left to right. So we need to do 252 divided by 7. First, we've got a negative divided by a positive. So right away, that means that my answer is going to be negative. So then we've got 252 divided by 7, which equals 36. So negative 36, don't forget, I've got another number here, divided by negative 9. So I've got negative 36 divided by negative 9, negative, same signs, negative divided by negative, so my answer is going to be positive. 36 divided by 9 is 4. So my answer is positive 4. Okay, signs for division, just like signs for different signs for multiplication, there are different signs for division as well. So examples, signs for A divided by B. First one, the one that's most familiar to everybody, is the division sign. So A divided by B. Another way is to use a backslash, A backslash B, which means A divided by B. Often, most of the time when we see a backslash, it's used in for fractions or for something like miles per hour or kilometers per hour, things like that. But it also means divide. And you can write division as a fraction. So when we we haven't talked about fractions yet, never mind. When we talk about fractions more, we will look at this type of division. And when we get into lesson 3, we get into algebra, we will be using fractions as division more often. So again, as I mentioned with the multiplication, once you get beyond your grade 10 math, then you don't see the times, the X used as much for multiplication. It's usually the brackets or the dot. Same thing with division. Once you get beyond grade 10 math, you often will see division written as a fraction. Okay, so dividend, divisor, and quotient. Each part of a division equation has a name. So I didn't mention this with the multiplication, but with the multiplication, you have a factor times a factor equals a product. So with division, you have a dividend divided by the divisor equals the quotient. So the dividend is the number you are dividing up. So that's the biggest number. Okay. So the bigger number is called the dividend. Then the divisor is the number you are dividing by. So that's going to be your smaller number. And then the quotient is the answer. So we have a dividend, divisor, and quotient. So in the example, in the problem, 20 divided by 4 equals 5. The dividend is 20, the bigger number. The divisor is 4, the smaller number. And the quotient is 5, the answer. Now, you don't have to remember those terms, but you might want to practice with them a little bit so that you are familiar with them. Okay, so remember, same rules. So we've got same sign equals a positive quotient different signs equals a negative quotient. Okay, so right now, forget about adding and subtracting. Focus on the rules for multiplying and dividing. So number 1, we've got negative 18 divided by negative 6. So both negative, so same sign. That tells me right away my answer is going to be positive. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So even though both of our signs are negative, our answer is positive. Okay, number 2, 40 divided by 8. Both positive. That means my answer is going to be positive. 40 divided by 8 is 5. So positive 5. Number 3, we've got negative 96 divided by 8. Negative divided by a positive, different signs, which means my answer is going to be negative. So 96 then divided by 8 is 12. So negative 12. Number 4, 64. So now we've got division written as a backslash. So 64 backslash 16 means 64 divided by 16. And they are both positive. So 64 divided by 16 equals 4, and that's positive 4 because they have the same sign. Number 6, 42 divided by negative 14. We have a positive divided by a negative, which means my answer is going to be negative. And so 42 divided by 14 equals negative 3. Or 42 divided by negative 14 equals negative 3, actually. Number 7, negative 21 divided by 7, positive 7. So negative divided by positive, different signs, which means my answer is going to be negative. 21 divided by 7 is 3. So negative 21 divided by positive 7 is negative 3. Number 8, now we've got our division written as a fraction. So 54 over 9, or 54 ninths, means 54 divided by 9. And if it helps you when you're doing your key questions, you can rewrite the questions as a division with using the division sign. But try to get used to looking at the way it's written and recognizing it as division. Okay, so 54 divided by 9 is 6, and that's a positive 6 because the 54 and the 9 are both positive. They have the same sign. So number 9, we've got negative 64 divided by 4. Okay, so one is negative, one is positive. That means that my answer is going to be negative. Negative 64 divided by 4. Sorry, do 64 divided by 4, which will give me 16. And because the signs are different, one's negative, one's positive, my answer is going to be negative. So negative 64 divided by 4 is negative 16. Number 10, we've got a negative divided by a positive again. So my answer is going to be negative. And 36 divided by 3 is 12. Negative 12. I was going to mention, I was going to mention something. Whenever you see a negative fraction, it will never be written as, wrong way. It will never be written as 36 over negative 3. Okay, that's an incorrect way to write it. So it'll always be with the negative sign in the numerator, so the top number, or it will be written right by the beginning of the fraction. So basically right beside the bar line. So it'll be negative 36 over 3, or negative 36 over positive 3. It'll be written one of those ways, not with the negative sign in the bottom. Still means that the fraction is negative if it's in the bottom, but we don't leave it there. Okay, we put it right at the bar line or in the numerator. Okay, so negative 36 divided by positive 3 is negative 12. Number 11, negative 28 divided by 7. So we've got a negative, and this, remember, is divide. So negative 28 divided by 7. One's positive, one's negative, so my answer is going to be negative, different signs. And 28 divided by 7 is 4. So negative 28 divided by positive 7 is negative 4. Number 12, negative 56 divided by 7. So, sorry, divided by negative 7, we've got 2 negatives, so my answer is going to be positive. And 56 divided by 7 is 8, so positive 8. And number 13, 96 divided by 12. So this is same as 96 divided by 12, and they're both positive, so my answer is going to be positive, and my answer is positive 8. Okay, so that brings us to your key questions. Oops, not that one. Key question 3 is find the product. So you'll notice that you've got multiplication or times, and then the next ones are written using brackets. Remember that 12 in brackets and -2 in brackets means 12 times -2. So if you want to rewrite them, you can rewrite them on the lines, or you can leave them as they are and multiply. Okay, so that's what that means. And don't forget, remember the rules. So just as a review, when we added integers, if the signs were the same, so a positive plus a positive, you ended up with a positive. If it was a negative plus a negative, you ended up with a negative. That's not the same for multiplication. For multiplication and division, if it's a positive times a positive, your answer is going to be positive. If it's a negative times a negative, your answer is going to be still going to be positive. The only way you're going to get a negative answer with multiplication is if your signs are different. So a positive times a negative will give you a negative, or a negative times a positive will give you a negative. Okay, so don't get your addition rules and your multiplication rules mixed up. Take your time. And then, of course, with the division, find the quotient. We've got -72 divided by 8. So first 4 again, using the division symbol. The last ones using written as a fraction. So 39 thirds means 39 divided by 3. 20 -5ths. Now I just finished saying that you wouldn't see it written there, and there it is. This is just for practice though. So 20 divided by -5, -60 divided by +20, -30 divided by -6. Okay, and this is because they're not actually fractions, they are actually division. Okay, so you can switch it if you want, but again, you need to get used to seeing division written as a fraction, because like I said, when you get up into your senior math, that's most of what you will see. And then when we get into our algebra, start getting into algebra in lessons 3 and 4, then you will see division written as fractions more. So you really need to get used to seeing that. Okay. Okay. So that's as far as we're going to go today. Looks like we're finishing up a bit early. So in class on Thursday, we will be starting working on fractions. So make sure that you get these key questions finished before Thursday and sent out to me for marking. And remember, your rules for adding and subtracting are not the same as your rules for multiplying and dividing. You have to remember to keep those separate in your head. Think about what you're doing. Don't rush through your work. Okay, take your time so that you get your answers right and you're not learning it the wrong way. Okay. Okay, so that is it for our class today. Can't really jabber on about anything else. So we're going to end a few minutes early. And like I said, on Thursday, we're going to start talking about fractions. So make sure you're ready for fractions. Okay, so that's it for our class today. Good luck with those key questions. Please contact me if you have any questions. The class will be uploaded to YouTube, so you can watch it again there if you need to.